What's up everyone, welcome back to the Lace Up channel. My name's Mickey. In today's video, I'm going to walk you through a successful implementation that we've just completed for Arctica. Now in case you guys have been subscribed to the channel, a couple weeks ago we actually went to Arctica to talk through some of the last issues left before going live. Well, fast forward just a couple short weeks and we've actually gone live. We've had to overcome problems, inefficiencies, training, every single speed bump you can think of, but we are finally live and Arctica is extremely happy. So in this video, we're going to talk you through what to expect should you go down the journey of implementing a WMS system yourself. Anyways, let's get right into it. So in any warehouse implementation, the most difficult parts include labeling all the bin locations and later doing your very first inventory count. Now inventory counts are difficult because most of us, we normally don't have the time to track inventory to a T. So when you implement locations into your warehouse, having to go through and count the contents of product within each location can be very difficult. Well, in Arctica's case, we actually had to do a grand total of 3 physical inventories. The first physical inventory, we basically went, counted the product, and then immediately had to scrap the idea because the power within the warehouse continued to go off. On the second attempt, we were able to do a successful count, but then due to some constraints in our first in, first out functionality, Arctica was unable to work. And then finally, it wasn't until the third inventory count wherein we were able to count the inventory in the bins and actually get an actual inventory in place. Now, at this stage you're like, oh Mickey, you think it's hard. Well Johnny, yes, it's extremely hard to do an inventory and later implement a process wherein that inventory that you've just done is predicated upon that process working to keep it accurate as well. That is a tongue twister, but it is so damn hard to do. So 3 inventory counts to get it up and running. Then we finally go live. The inventory is in the system and the first thing Arctica has to do is do all of the receiving through the scanners. Now, in case you guys are new to the channel, receiving includes bringing product off of a vendor's truck, counting the product on a pallet, and tagging each pallet with a corresponding label that contains the product, lot number, and expiration. Now for Arctica, this was an interesting process because to break every pallet to find the contents, lot numbers, and expirations within that pallet were extremely difficult. So what Arctica had us do, they had us match both the expiration and the lot number to be identical. Now this is okay because Arctica is not a manufacturer, so they do not need to have these super strict lot traceability rules. For them, what's important is maintaining first in and first out. So what we do, the moment the pallet comes in, if I'm receiving 100 pints of ice cream, I put in the expiration date and automatically the system puts in the same lot as the expiration, and now we print a label, adhere to the pallet, and put the pallet away. So here's where this implementation got interesting. When we went to put that pallet away for the very first time, we took the pallet, went to put it into a location. The system told us that we were unable to stick that pallet in that bin. Now that's because our system, like many others in the marketplace, has something called extremely strict first in, first out. This means that in order to put a pallet into a bin, you have to first rotate out any older expiration date first. Now what ends up happening is when you go stick a pallet into a bin and an older expiration date sits atop that pallet, the system's normally going to prompt you to transfer down that pallet before putting away the pallet that you currently have on your forklift. Now, in the event that you have a warehouse that quickly rotates, this could be problematic because you need to be able to put product away in a bin location as fast as possible to keep product moving. And obviously it's not that big of an issue if your product rotates quickly. So anyways, we basically had to remove all of our strict FIFO in their entire warehouse and make all of their warehouses or bin locations something called restriction free. And restriction free means that you're able to put any expiration date into any bin location at any time. Now, at this juncture, you're like, well, Mickey, how are you supposed to track lot numbers if you've got, multiple expirations, multiple lot numbers for the same item in the same bin? Well, Johnny, it's actually quite simple. If you rotate out the oldest expiration first, that tends to cover 99.9% of all the traceability issues, because if your warehouse is anything like all the warehouses in the world, when you go put a complete pallet into a picking bin, you take whatever remaining individual cases are left in that picking bin and you set them atop of the entire pallet. So that means if you work that way and your system does some kind of a loose FIFO, that means that you're able to remove the restrictions from all your bins, and then you're able to put new pallets of product anywhere you want, so that the system alerts you if there is an older pallet elsewhere, and so that you can then transfer that pallet from any bin to any bin, or put a pallet that's just come into a picking bin and not have any restrictions. So at Arctica, we removed all the restrictions in terms of put away. But now came the picking. And in the picking, we struggled because we realized that when an individual with a big glove went in a freezer to scan a bin location, we realized that they were unable to use that big glove to hit 7 taps on a screen to confirm a quantity. And in order to adjust this, we basically had to make it so when the warehouse individual goes up and scans a bin location, the system compares what's within that bin location to what's in the load order. And as a result, the system knows, okay, if the order needs 7 of an item, there's 7 in that warehouse, the system will automatically confirm those 7 based on a single scan. Now think about that for a second. I'm sure you're like, oh, Mickey, that means that my guys might pick the wrong quantity. Well, for the most part, that could happen with a voice picking system. That could happen with any system in the entire world. So what I like to opt for, or err on the side of in these situations, is I like to have speed, which means by letting Arctica be able to walk up to a bin, single stroke scan the bin, confirm the entire quantity, we are able to expedite the picking process, eliminate 90% or 95% of the picking errors while not slowing down the pickers. So on picking, we had to make that adjustment as well. And that's a good segue into the transfers. The transfers, wherein you transfer one pallet from above to below, we had the issue again with FIFO, wherein the system would never let us transfer a pallet from above to below if there was an older pallet elsewhere. Again, this was resolved by making every single pallet restriction free, or every bin location restriction free, meaning that we can transfer multiple pallets into the same bin and have the bin's logic automatically pick out of that bin the oldest lot and the oldest expiration date first. So at this point, we've resolved receiving, put away, picking, transfers at Arctica, and now came the kicker, the adjustments, the physical inventories. Why was this a problem? Well, Arctica, like most of our customers, has their own ERP system, a system of record that maintains the balance sheet inventory value for your business. In the case of Arctica, their system is called Integrisys. And Integrisys has its own inventory values for the product, and LaceUp has its own inventory for the product. So in LaceUp, you could have 50 bin locations, each with 1 unit, totaling 50 available within LaceUp, and in Integrisys, it could just have the single item with 50 on hand. So LaceUp's got to sum up the totality of all the bins within its system to equate the inventory in Integrisys. Now, at this point, it's about to get a little bit complex, because in order to get the inventory to match in 2 systems, you've essentially got to take every transaction that's pending in the inventory system or the warehouse management system, and you've got to add or subtract it from a calculated inventory in the ERP to give you what the inventory value in the ERP should be. So let me give you an example. Let's say that you've got, for argument's sake, 10 bananas in LaceUp, and you've got 12 bananas in your system of record. So 10 bananas in LaceUp, 12 bananas in your system of record. Well, how is it possible that there could be a discrepancy between the 2 systems? Well, that's because you've got an order sitting in between your LaceUp and your system of record that has yet to export. That's for 2. So you see, I've got to do the calculation to deduct those 2 from the LaceUp inventory to compute the value that the inventory should be in the ERP to determine whether or not there should actually be any adjustments between the 2 systems. Now, I know this is getting very much so into the weeds, but it took me so long to realize that I had to do this calculation in the accounting system, or in the WMS system, my WMS, in order to compute what was in the accounting system and then actually compare the two values to come up with any adjustments. And that was something that was hard. And now I think it sounds easy for me to say, but it took us more than a year and a half to figure out. That being said, in Arctica, we had to make those adjustments work with their system of record, Integrisys, so that our system could take all of our bin locations, do a total, subtract all pending transactions, and export into Integrisys the physical inventory count at that moment in time. So that was the final change we had to make in the system, but not the final change overall. This, even though the system was done, was the hardest thing we had to do, and that was train a staff that had never used a system like this before. And the only way we were able to accomplish this is I had to place one of my best implementers on site for the better part of a couple weeks to work with their staff, to train their staff, to put in place the processes to get this system up and running. Now, honestly, had I not done that, had that individual not gone, then that implementation would have been a failure, and I would have lost a bunch of money in monthly recurring revenue, and I would have lost a satisfied customer. So what does this all mean for you? Well, if you go through the journey of implementing your WMS, you can expect to spend anywhere between 4 and 6 months to get up and running. You can expect just about everything to go wrong the first couple times you go live. You can expect that you're going to have issues, you're going to have bugs, you're going to have flaws in your processes. But what you can also expect that's actually positive is that if you work with the right partner, that partner will work with you every single day as persistently and intensely as possible to get you to go live, to get you to have your system up and running. And they won't nickel and dime you for the problems that they have throughout the entire process. At least we don't. Now, that's not a shout out to me, but if you're having a discussion for a WMS, keep in your mind this story with Arctica, how it worked, the problems we had to overcome, and how I dealt with them. The only way I can tell you that I dealt with them was by showing up every single day and actually making an effort to make the customer happy. Anyways, I hope I didn't go on too many tangents on that little chat. If you enjoyed that video, go down below, give me a little comment letting me know what you agreed with, what you disagreed with. Give me a thumbs up, give me a subscribe, and I look forward to seeing you next video. Take care.